Hey there, welcome to Oman Runner. I've been making a series of videos about running the virtual Chicago Marathon here in Dublin in October 2020. In this, the last of the videos, I'll review the route, the nutrition plan, the kit, and of course the race itself, and analyse what went right and unfortunately what went wrong. So due to coronavirus, I suppose, couldn't run it in Chicago, and I had to pick 3 different routes to run in Dublin. I'll put a link up there. The first one was around the house here. It would have been short. Could have popped in after fuel and bathroom breaks, but I had to weave in a lot out of traffic, and that would have been mentally very draining, and ultimately not very fast because the loop was about 0.7 of a kilometre. The next one was down in the Shonmore Park. Would have been okay to park the car. There would have been no traffic at all because it's a closed pedestrian park. But I would have had to zigzag in around a few people, and I would have to run over 42 laps of the same thing, which would get very boring. So I chose Phoenix Park, and again you'll see in the video of the whole loop. And if you watch the race, you'll see a couple of sections of it. But it pretty much worked. There was only a couple of places to cross traffic. It was never a bother. And I had to avoid people here and there. You'll see that in the video. That wasn't a bother either. The problem was that there was quite a bit of variation in height, about 30 meters on each loop, and I did about 6 loops. So there was a bit of climbing up and down, and the wind was coming from the northeast. It was northeasterly, so or northwesterly. It was coming from the northwest, and so what was happening was I was running uphill and into the wind, and that didn't help. So I'll analyze a bit more of that in the data later on. But as a route to run, it was pretty nice. I mean, it was pleasant. The sun shone. At the start, you'll see it's not looking good, but actually it was perfect for conditions for running a marathon. So nutrition. I decided early on to not mix and match a lot of stuff, but to go with Morton's non-elite marathon plan, which involved drinking out of one of these things, really. I was to drink some of their mix. So it said to drink 160 on the morning. The night before, you were to drink the 320. So you drank one of these in this thing. It's fairly benign, and I had practiced with it, and I wasn't expecting any intestinal problems. But the thing that I wasn't sure of, the following morning when I had to drink the 160, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. Is this just half of this? And as far as I can tell, it is. I was going to go with just half of this, but I thought better stick to the plan that they've got. So I got myself one of these, but it tastes exactly like a diluted version of this. And when I read the ingredients, etc., and the reason I probably would have preferred to drink half of this was it would have been half the volume, with the same amount of stuff in here, and I thought that might help with wanting to go to the toilet, etc. I also took 6 gels, 3 on alternating every 6K, 3 caffeine and 3 non-caffeine. I started with the caffeine and alternated through. And I stuck religiously to that plan. Now, in terms of water, what I did was I carried this bag, which you'll have seen or may have seen in the previous video of the race, and which you can see there somewhere. So this one here is 150 ml Hydro Pack by Salomon. It's really good. I popped one of these in the shorts, and each time I went around I drank one of these. So I drank 600 ml. There was an electrolyte in this, and I had different flavors: mango, blueberry, and pink grapefruit, and I just randomized them. To be honest, I couldn't tell the difference between any of them. I don't know what I was drinking, but I drank 600 milliliters of these, and then every time I got to the car, I tried to gulp one of these down. And again, this was just water in these. On the first trip around, I was trying to pull this thing out so fast. This thing broke, but it was fine. So overall, I drank, say 600 ml through the bottles, and then a couple of gulps of 50, so maybe 750 milliliters. When I got to the end, I wasn't thirsty and I wasn't hungry. In fact, when I came home, I really didn't feel like eating or drinking at all, which is unusual. I felt slightly nauseous. That was the only thing, but I think that the nutrition plan worked. I was certainly not hungry and I wasn't thirsty, so I suppose you can't ask for more than that. The plan I had was to do 3 stops at the car and pick up some supplies. So I popped them all in this little plastic Tesco bag, and in each one I had one of these. I had sort of the residue. I had 2 gels. I had a napkin, which turned out to be very useful for each route, and I had a fresh Under Armour mask. So I packed 4 of the same bags, each with a caffeine and non-caffeine gel, even if I didn't need it, because that way when I went into the car to get a bag, I didn't have to worry which bag it was. Just grab the bag, and on occasion, if I had an extra gel, I just brought it back, chucked it back in the car, or as you may have seen in the previous video, gave it to my friend Liam as I was walking along. So that whole plan all worked. So the route worked fine, apart from the wind, and the nutrition worked fine. And then let's have a look at the kit. And again, I made a video about the kit here, but this was the shoe I ran in, the Hoka One Carbon X SPE. Now, one of the cardinal rules of a marathon is not to try anything new on the day. I broke that one because this one had only 3K into it, plus a bit of filming around the French embassy. But I had the previous version, the Carbon X, and I loved it. And this shoe was perfect on the day. I thought that I might have some collar issues. Might was a thing, because I've had that on a shoe here or there, and I didn't know what it'd be like at 42.2K. But these were perfect. There's my Stride foot pod, which we'll talk about in a bit. When I started off in the first 100 meters, I thought, oh, I've over tightened this particular shoe, the left shoe. And then I didn't think about it. I thought I was going to have to stop, and then I didn't think about it again until I was in bed at night trying to review the race in my head. Super shoe. Yeah, these for me are a great go-to long training session or marathon day. There might be a few quicker shoes out there for the marathon, but these were, I just thought they were perfect. So the previous issues, if you're considering the SPE version versus the Carbon X, the heel is different. These are much easier to get on. So if you're doing a transition in triathlon, definitely pick these, not the other ones. And the laces didn't come undone, which the other ones the Carbon X's have a habit of doing. And of course, because it was the Chicago Marathon, I did like the red, white, and blue. So even though I also used that for the French embassy when I first went off them. So then the next thing was I wore a pair of Rockay socks. Now, again, in the previous video, you might have seen me out on the beach with the dog in the morning. I wore different socks for that and different shoes because I was worried about sand getting in, possibly into the socks. And then when I came back, I just went through each part of the sock before I started out to just get any old little grass pieces out from previous runs that I'd done that don't always come out in the wash. Super socks. The Rockay, I probably would have worn the Agile if I had been running in the shoes a bit more because they're a bit smaller. But actually, these are absolutely perfect. No blistering, I mean, I put them on, forgot all about them, and off I went. I wanted to use the Janji shorts, and these were massively comfortable throughout the race. You'll see the light blue coming up for a particular reason. Really easy to get the stuff in and out of, so I put the water in the back. Late on in the race, when you can see after I've hit my wall, I'm struggling to put stuff in the side. I just didn't notice that I hadn't got my plastic bag in properly. Not that it made a blind bit of difference. But the shorts are fantastic. I had no taint issues. I used a little bit of non-Vaseline lube. I used the gold. It was fantastic. I had no taint. I had no chafing whatsoever, which came as a bit of a surprise. Super comfortable throughout. So yeah, these are a great short. Great choice on the day. As was my Soar running hot weather t-shirt in I mean, you couldn't miss me really, could you, in this thing? It's the bright yellow with the green. Really, again, super comfortable throughout. Didn't notice anything about it other than I turned up and finished the race. Didn't feel overly sweaty, whatever. Same is true of the buff hat, which I actually really enjoyed wearing. I had considered not wearing a hat, but I did notice that the sun came out during the day, which you'll see in the videos, and it was really protective over my eyes, so I didn't get any sun strain or anything like that. The Under Armour mask proved perfect. You can see a video where I analyzed different running masks, which I did earlier on in the year. It was really good to run with on the day. I changed it 4 times. They get full of gunge, which they're supposed to do, I suppose, and they get sweaty. It was very good to have a few different ones to change. So I changed roughly every 10K, and fantastic. Most of the tech worked, not all of it. I decided to bring a Stride foot pod, and we look at the data in a short little while. It was great, worked really, really well. Just clip it onto the shoe, and away you go. Didn't have to think about it after that. I paired it with my Apple Watch. This is a Series 4. This is not always on, which I like the fact that it's not always on. I like the black face and, you know, but you have to keep waking it up. And that made it hard sometimes to check your speed and your power output without too much faffing around. And the problem with the watch face is if it gets it all wet because your fingers are sweaty, it's very hard to move around between it. It's very hard to stop the watch. I'll see what the Apple Series 6 is like, but it's not great. And I did consider, and I'm considering, changing to a Garmin or to a Chorus maybe. But I do like the Stride interface on the watch. That works really well, and actually pretty much the time of running the marathon. Stride have updated all that, so I'm going to get a Series 6 and play around with that before I make a final decision. But it worked well in terms I did get to stop it. I wasn't particularly worried about whether it's 4 minutes and 6 and 30 seconds or 20 seconds or 59 seconds. It didn't really matter. Once it wasn't going to break 4 hours, it didn't really matter. So that was something that if I was very particular about that, this mightn't be so good. I brought the phone for emergency purposes. It's, you know, I slid it down the side of the shorts, and I, for some reason, got to the end and it was totally dead. It turns out it made 50-something phone calls to my sister and brother independently, and then would leave voicemails to them, you know. And it also took 103 photographs plus videos of the inside of my thigh and shorts, I guess. So you'll see, I'll show a few of them. Some of them are abstract. And, I had turned it off, so I don't know. Maybe it was, I don't know. That's something I'd have to figure out, because obviously you want the phone at the end to ring people and to do various things, as you may have seen in the videos. A couple of friends ran with me at the end, so it wasn't an issue, but it could have been an issue. I made a video of my stride output, and here you can see it here, and that's I'm highlighting the route into Phoenix Park on the right hand side, so the looped run, and you can see I've called it a hard long run, but in kilometer 1 I did it in 5:10, 5:16, but I'm going downhill at that point. The graph at the top that I'm sliding along there is the overall. The spikes, the orange spikes, are where I stop at the car, and at the end it's where it's all going pear-shaped, which is, as you can see on the right hand side, there's the map as it moves around. It's all the problems took place in the lower right hand corner on the way back, where it's A, steep, and B, windy. So lap 1, 5:16. I'm going downhill at this point, and it was a bit tricky because you didn't know whether to run for power or whether to run for speed, because there was a downhill section. If I had more confidence in myself and in the stride, I would have used it on a just matching the power output. I really got a great respect for stride out of this, in terms of that if I'd run for power, which at 234 watts would have given me the time, but instead you can see early on I'm actually popping out much higher watts, 251 on the back, and then that starts to fall. And part of it was I got confused, and I had a few watch issues in terms of whether to run for pace or power, and in the end I kind of did neither, and kind of ran out of gas. And you'll see kilometer 17, kilometer 18, kilometer 21 I'm still doing 5:23s, and I'm hoping to do a 5:41 average. So at this stage I'm going okay. I'm not particularly worried. Things seem to be going fine, but they start to go pear-shaped after about, you know, as we go down to about 30k or 18 miles or thereabouts, it starts to really go downhill. And towards the end, as we go down through the lower numbers, you'll see there was a real struggle. So here I'm just highlighting kilometer 27. That's probably the last okay kilometer. The numbers are starting to creep up from 5:33, 5:49, 5:54, 6:22. This is on the backstage. This is probably one of the worst. You come into the back, you're running out of energy. So you'll see in the previous video where I'm wobbling around a bit. And then once I was on the last lap with my friends who were accompanying me, it was fine. This is the highlight here is probably it's just about to go into the last lap, where I'm coming down by Dublin Zoo. But you can see the numbers are all going sort of south, and you can see it's all getting very jaggly up in the graph up at the top. At this stage I know I'm not going to do 4 hours, so I'm going to take a bit longer. One of the problems was I measured it all on Map My Run. This is the last segment. I had to add sort of segments at the end. I thought I was going to finish on the straight, but the Map My Run didn't allow me to. Sorry, the Map My Run said a loop was about, I think it was 6.8K, but in reality it turned out to be 6.4K. And therefore, what I intended to finish on the long straight stretch opposite Ars and Uachtaráin, which is the Irish President's House, turned out not to be the case, and I had to keep going and then go down the bottom of the park. And so you'll see in the video that neither Con nor Liam, who were with me at the time, knew what the finish was, because only I knew what the finish was because it was on my watch. There was no sort of, and I didn't know where that would be. So that was slightly tricky, but nothing to do with the lack of performance. You can see on the video, you'll see the peaks and troughs and valleys of how the slope was. So each time, I don't know why they sort of taper down in the stride video, but they do. But ultimately, I think I can't blame anything other than myself for a lack of energy. I suppose in conclusion, I probably went out a little faster than I should have or would have if I was doing it again. Now, if I was doing it, I would stick more strictly to the power data. Now that I've got one marathon in the bag, sticking to power data would be a good idea. Probably went out a bit faster than I perhaps would like to have done in hindsight. Part of the problem was the opening stretch, or one stretch, is long and downhill with the wind, and the other's uphill into the wind. And trying to run, I started off trying to run according to the time because I didn't want to go out too fast. But then you're conscious that you're going downhill and you're going to have to lose some time on the uphill. And then the second lap, I tried to run according to the power, but again, I couldn't see it all the time easily without faffing around with the watch. And ultimately, I probably went out a little bit too fast. If it was reality, and I mean, okay, it is reality, but if it was Chicago, and I think I would have gone out just as fast, because you get involved in the momentum and the hype and the adrenaline and everything else. But in reality, it was probably a little too fast, but I didn't think it was a problem then. I'm not so sure it was a problem now. The problem was that I ran out of energy. The food went well. The kit went well. All the things that you thought you'd get, a cramp, a limp, you'd get an itch, you'd feel hungry, you'd feel thirsty. None of that happened. It was flawless. What happened was I ran out of power. And so I think I got to try and work on the mental side of things. But once I'd broken, once I wasn't going to make 4 hours, it was kind of much more relaxing. I thought, well, I can enjoy just running around with the buddies. Laps are boring. When I was a lot younger, I used to run, back in times when I could do an hour and 26 for a half marathon, that kind of time. I would run with a friend, and I would start off well. He was like a metronome, literally like a metronome, because his knee would go click, 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 click. It's very weird. John, if you're out there, I hope you're well. But he was fantastic to run with, because he was like a metronome in the middle. All I had to do was concentrate on staying with John in the middle, and then towards the end, I'd be fine. I thought that something vaguely similar might happen this time. I thought the last 10K, I had obviously this 10-10-10 plan, 10 miles at a no faster than 5:30, 10 miles at no slower than 5:30, and then 10K what you got. Turned out 10K I didn't have anything. So that was annoying. So there's a slight feeling to left something on the table. But having not done the 4 hours, it gives me a lot of momentum to do. And I'll probably do another series of videos where I'll finally try and get this great big mythical 4 hours, or sub 4 hours. But I feel fine. So I ran on the Thursday. I think Friday I took off. I always take Fridays off. Yesterday I went for a few light runs. I was filming Clifton 7 for another video. And that was really good and very enjoyable. And it was a great recovery shoe. More on that in another video. And then today I went out for a run to Lighthouse with Liam. We ran out. It was absolutely gorgeous. So we ran about 10K and then potted around, walked around the rest of the time. Feel absolutely fine, which is probably not what you want to. You probably want to feel terrible because you left it all on the table. But the good news is that the entry to Chicago, the virtual one, was because I had an actual entry into Chicago, which means I have an entry into the actual race in Chicago of October 2021, when I'm hoping the Cubs and the Sox would be in the playoffs at the same time, which would make the whole thing a lot more fun. So thanks for sticking through all of these videos. It'd be great if you subscribe. And until the next video, just keep running along.